Welcome back to another edition of Real Estate Investing with Alex-Deacon. My name is Adam. I am the host. I am here with Alex as always every week. I always love starting so awkward, Alex. I like starting every show as awkward as possible just to set a good tone, you know?
Awkward.
So listen, here we're back again.
Let's just have some awkward silence.
It's all kinds of awkward. Dead air. Just all the dead air that we can. Guys, listen, if you have not, go back and listen to the 30-some hours that we have already recorded for you guys. There's a ton of stuff. We've covered a ton of topics. Today, we are going to be covering proper budgeting for repairs, property management, and vacancies. Alex, dig in on this one. Where do you want to start out with this one?
I thought we had more hours. We have less than 30 hours,
huh? We should have, including...
We have almost 25 here, and then we have almost 4 in the property management. But some of that's doubled up, right?
Some of that is, that top one's probably the most, and then including Ian, if you count his down there. What's his totals up there? 5 hours, so total we're at about 30.
It's definitely good stuff. I just thought we had more. It seems like it, because we do this a lot, but then they end up being 15 minutes.
Sometimes they're 15. Yep. So that's actually one thing. If you guys want to, reach out to us on either Facebook, Twitter, email us. Reach out to us. Let us know if you guys like the longer versions that are more half an hour. If you guys enjoy the little 15-minute bits and pieces where we kind of just toss ideas out there. We do these for you guys. We want you guys to enjoy them. We want you guys to take the information. So give us some feedback. Let us know. And everyone that has given us feedback at the previous workshops, thank you. You guys are awesome. So, Alex.
Okay.
The floor is yours, good man.
Yeah, proper budgeting for repairs, management, and vacancy. How exciting.
Huh? Exciting. Woo. Adventure.
We could have come up with a better title, I think.
We probably could have. We will, but before it is published.
Proper budgeting for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy.
This will definitely get retitled before we publish.
So, the reason I bring this topic up is because we just spoke about out-of-state investors. Okay, so which a lot of out-of-state investing information that I gave to in that last podcast is the same as if you're in-state. It's not a whole lot different. It's harder to buy something that's you can't see and check on a regular basis when you're out of state, and you don't have the teams and this in place and people you can trust, knowledge of the market. But you still need to have that even when you're here, but it's just easier because you're here. Right. You get to talk to people, meet them, you get to go see the properties. But what the mistake I see in many cases, including myself, you think I'd learned by now, but I still make the mistake of proper budgeting. And I hear somebody outside. So, folks, I have my 2 dogs here with me today. And so if you hear the dogs barking, we might have to stop. And yeah, she's getting ready. She's getting ready there. I think Ian's outside. All right, so proper budgeting for repairs, I see it done incorrectly. And it's not that it's incorrectly, you don't know any better. I know better, and I still budget incorrectly because sometimes I see things with rose-colored glasses, colored glasses. So, but it's so important because you can pencil whip a property and make it work, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to budget $50 per unit for repairs. I'm going to budget 10% for management, and vacancy I'm going to use 8%. That's easy, right? Because you just pull those out of your hat. Right. You really have no basis to pull these statistics out. The management's fairly simple, but a lot of folks don't budget in. Also, there's finder's fees involved. So you budget in 10% management or 8% management, whatever the case is. But then you have to budget in a finder's fee and some other small fees that go along with that. So finder's fee is to place a new tenant. So if you have a 10-unit building and we have to put 2 new tenants in there every year, or 3 new tenants in there every year, and the average rent's $800, and our finder's fee is 1 month's rent, so that's another $2,400 that you have to budget into your management fee, which a lot of people don't. So that, in this case, that would be $200 a month. So let's say your cash flow is $400, and you didn't budget in the finder's fee, you already lost. Your cash flow just got cut in half. Right. So your ROI might have been 12%, and it just got cut to 6% or something. That's how quickly it can go poof, right? So make sure you budget proper for management. And that's going to vary depending on what management company you talk to, and more importantly, finding a good management company who does a good job versus one that charges less is way more important. So I'd rather pay for a good job and pay what I pay versus think I'm saving money when you're probably not going to save money. You're probably going to end up costing you money.
Hey, I heard you know a good management company, by the way.
I do, actually. I'll let you know about it.
Okay,
later.
thank you.
Okay. All right. We don't want to plug any of my other businesses. Oh, there she goes, Ian. Way to go. Sorry, folks. That was my partner, Ian, and that's my dog. That's my dog, Ava.
Sticks his head up.
And my other dog.
We always tell people we have a live studio audience. We just actually finally have a live studio audience.
That's actually Annie barking. Ava's over there sitting minding her own business. So, proper budgeting is super critical. So we just talked about cutting your profit margin each month in half because you didn't do something correctly, which is proper budgeting for management. Now, repairs is a big one. And the question I get posed to me all the time is, what should I set aside for repairs? And that, honestly, is going to depend on the property, right? It's going to depend on how much capital improvements you want to add to the property. So, for instance, I have a client right now who's buying a duplex. The property's probably worth, I think it's worth, maybe $140. He's getting the property for $130. So that's good. He's getting it undervalued. But he knows up front that one of the tenants is moving out. He knows up front that we're going to have to put probably $10,000 into that unit now, as soon as that tenant moves out. He knows that we're going to get a little bit more rent based on those repairs we're going to have to do. Put a new kitchen in, new flooring, paint. But he also knows that when we put that $10,000 into it, it's now going to be worth maybe $148,000.
Okay.
He only has $140,000 invested in it. The property is going to increase value because it's going to bring in more rent and it's going to show better. So there's some pluses and minuses there. Mm-hmm. The minuses are he has to come up with money now.
Right.
But the pluses long term, it's going to be worth more money. It's going to bring in more income.
Right.
But how do you budget for that? Okay, so if this place was just rented, both sides, and it still is, but the tenant's moving out. If you don't budget for when that tenant moves out, and you don't take a close look at that unit, knowing that I'm going to have to put a new kitchen in. It's just, unless I want to rent to, tenants who I don't want to rent to,
right.
Then you got to make the place nice. Does that mean you have to install a kitchen every time? No. But in this case, it really needs done. Mm-hmm. It's an old tin, like metal cabinets. One of the cabinet doors is missing. You just can't fix it. So if you budget, let's just say you do this. You budget this property for $100 per unit each month. That's $200. Okay? Just for repairs. A hot water tank can be $800. Boom, that's almost a full year's of budgeting for repairs for one unit. And then you set aside another $100 a month for capital improvements like kitchens and carpet. When people move out, you might have to replace carpet or flooring. So let's say you're budgeting for this duplex $400 a month. Okay. What happens in this case? What happens with that budget?
It's all going straight to the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Straight to the kitchen.
So you budgeted $400 a month times 12 months is $4,800. So you budgeted $4,800 for the year. Mm-hmm. Per year. Every year. And guess what you're going to spend year one?
Already $8,000, right?
Probably 10. Kitchen, flooring, and paint. Yeah. 10. Now that doesn't include any repairs or capital improvements on the other side. So you just blew, your budget just tripled, right? I mean, it's $4,800. You're going to spend 10 plus, let's say 13 for both sides, including rehabbing that whole side. So you almost tripled your budget, and that means at the end of the year, because you didn't budget for management correctly, and you didn't budget for the repairs correctly, or didn't know this up front, like my client knows.
Right.
If you didn't know this up front and you weren't ready for it, can you imagine the sticker shock when that happens? Your management company calls you and say, hey, the tenant's moving out. Here's what we're going to have to do. New carpet or flooring, $5,000, and you really should install a new kitchen. Another $5,000, new appliances. What? I'm not ready for that. I don't have that money set aside. I've only budgeted $4,800 a year, and you're telling me I'm going to spend $10,000 the second month?
Right.
Happens all the time.
Okay.
So proper budgeting means. So how do you properly budget? Well, if you bought that place and you knew the kitchen was only 3 years old, and you knew the flooring was pretty much indestructible, it wasn't carpet, it was just this indestructible, nice vinyl click type floor that was really nice looking, and you're just going to have to clean it. And you knew that the paint was reasonable. All the ceilings were good. It seemed like all the doors were painted. You'd probably have to paint the walls only. And all the landscaping was good. The mechanicals were solid. The roof is only 5 years old. The furnace is 2 years old. The AC unit's 3 years old. The hot water tank's 1 year old. Then you know that your budget can be less, right? Now, if you're buying this same unit and the kitchen's old, the bathroom's on its last leg, the furnace is just barely getting by, the roof is probably going to need it in 5 years. It's been patched. The plumbing's very old. You got a lead water pipe coming into the house, so maybe you want to get that replaced because there's potential lead paint poisoning there. You're talking $20,000, $30,000 here. So if you don't account for that,
right,
and are not cognizant of it and know about it and are ready for it, that's one hell of a curveball.
Now, how many projects, and I know this might be a side thing, but how many projects, like if you start to add up the things and you think like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, set aside, or have there been things you've passed on because of that? Because once you looked at it, you realized,
yeah, because the price wasn't right, or if the price was right, but I knew for a fact that because of all the other things I have going on, that I didn't have enough to budget for that too. Like I'm in that pickle right now where, a lot of the properties I own that I bought a long time ago, and I didn't really have money to, I'm just nursing these suckers along, right? Some apartments I'll rent for $300, which should rent for $6, because I don't want to invest $15,000 into the unit. Because for me to invest $15,000 and get an extra $300 a month is a good investment, but I don't have it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Or I didn't have it at the time. So right now I have all these, I probably have 20 units, maybe 4, 5, or 6 buildings that need extensive work. So let's just say $15,000 a unit times 20 units. What is that? I'm probably going to get sick and throw up in my
I don't
garbage can here. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
So 15,000 times 10 is 150 times 20 is 300,000.
Yeah.
Okay? That's probably not wrong. I could probably spend $300,000 right now if I had the manpower to get it all done and rehab these apartments. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm in a position now where I can. So every unit, when they come vacant, I'm putting $15,000 into it. Because the property's maybe almost paid off, or it's halfway paid off. That money, it needs to go into it. It's going to increase the value. I'm going to get more rent. I'm going to be able to rent it quicker. It's all good, and I can afford it, and it's all tax write-off. It's all good.
Right.
But if you don't have that money and you get hit with a curveball like this on these repairs, it can hurt drastically. Mentally, it can be draining, and financially, it can be crushing, right? And if you grow too quickly, which I did the same thing. If you buy a bunch of properties all at once and you don't multiply this scenario times 4 properties.
Right.
So boom, that first year you just got hit with $40,000 of unexpected costs. $40,000. So maybe that's not a lot for some people, but that's a lot for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
So that can happen if you grow too quickly and you don't understand what you're getting into.
Right. So
it's not rocket science, it's business, but you do have to think about it. You do have to know what you're doing. It's not real hard to wrap your head around it, but you just got to understand these underlying little costs that can really come back to nail you.
Is that one of the biggest problems? Is a lot of times people not go in too heavy too quick, but they go in too heavy too quick, and because everybody gets excited,
You're
you jump
looking
into
at
the
one.
game.
Yeah, you're looking at one. I did the same thing.
There you go.
It's easy to understand. You don't have to be you don't have to be a Yale student or a rocket scientist. I barely got out of high school, and it's just you don't have to really be super book smart.
Right.
You just have to know what you're doing. It's a business. This is hard. It's very hard to do. So just be cognizant. Know what you're getting. I don't mind buying properties that I know I'm going to need to put money into because I know I'm going to need to put money into.
Right.
When you don't expect that is when it really hurts.
And the biggest thing is when you evaluate a property, make sure you're because when you're budgeting properly, you can't, and I want to reinforce what you said earlier, you can't look through rose-colored glasses, because then your budgeting is just going to be totally skewed. Like, be honest, if not even more conservative, than you normally would be.
I brought this up to a client when we were selling a duplex for him. I said, dude, you need to get rid of this one, because this one is a ticking time bomb. And we had an offer, and he decided against it. I'm like, man, you really should have taken that. You're talking it wasn't much. It was insignificant. Anyway, so like 6 months later, this repair came up, which was like $4,000 or $5,000, which was a lot for this gentleman and a lot for this property.
Right.
And if he would have listened to me, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I just knew that there's something's going to go wrong here. This is one you want to get rid of. We should have sold it then.
Typically, if say a property is $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, where's your cap as far as, okay, I know I'll sink this much money into it, or does it depend on location and all kinds of variables? Is everything
ton
different?
Of variables. It depends on. So if you paid 50 or 60 for it, but it's in an area that now transitioned from a crappy area to now, because Google or Amazon opened up a little hub and there's 60 employees there, and not a lot of employees, but just 60. All of a sudden, it that whole area flourished because of that news. Then it's worth putting $20,000 into that kitchen and bathroom, right?
And absolutely.
But if you're in an area that's downtrodden and it's not going anywhere, and the next tenant you get in there is probably going to destroy it, then to put $20,000 or $30,000 in a kitchen and bath and flooring and paint is not a good investment. So yeah, there's.
So would you say this is why it's never good to listen to the rule of thumb?
Yeah, amen.
There you go.
We talk about that.
There you go.
So budgeting for repairs, management, and then budgeting properly for vacancy. So it's hard to get vacancy really, really wrong. Where you can really lose money is the repair aspect of it. Management and vacancy is probably the least of my concerns, but they can be a concern. We talked about management, how that can affect your cash flow and cut it in half. And then vacancy, that would be your net cash flow. And then vacancy would be like some buildings I own. I own a really nice duplex in just a good, stable area. I've had essentially zero vacancy in 25 years. Essentially zero. I mean, we're talking 6 months of vacancy of 2 units in 25 years. So, I mean, that's amazing. So you can't use that to gauge everything you buy, right?
Right.
So 25 times 12 out of 50. Oh no, then that's times 2 because there's 2 units times 2. So out of that is so not right. 25 years times 12 months equals 300 times 2. So out of 600 months in rent, I've lost 6 months.
Wow.
So what is that? Is that like 1%? No, that's not even 1. 1% would be 60. No, 1% will be 6.
6, right? Yeah, 6.
Wow, so my vacancy rate is 1%. Okay.
That's incredible.
Then I have a building down the street here that's, I think I use this a lot as an analogy, but it's true. So it's 9 units. I'm always 1 unit vacant there. Either someone's not paying or it's vacant.
Something's going on there.
So out of 9 units, I'm probably like 12% vacancy there. So you see the difference. So what vacancy rate do I use, Alex? I can't tell you that until I see the building and I get a general idea, like the layout are the units, like if somebody says I'm buying 9 one-bedroom units, but they're 9 really, really small bedrooms and the kitchen's real teeny and the living room you can't even put, like you could put a couch and a TV and that's it. Then your vacancy rate's going to be higher because who the hell wants to live there when they can go buy? So your unit's 300 square feet and the one down the street's 400. That's pretty big because that's 25% larger.
Right.
So who's going to rent yours for the same price when they can go down the street and rent the same one, even for $50 more?
Right.
So you have to factor in all these things. How livable, how appealing is your property? How nice is it? How appealing is it from the outside? Can you attract people? Is it more of a transient type of apartment building, like where they're really small, but you're right on the bus line, but you're going to get turnover, because it's just temporary. These folks they want a place to live, they want a place to hang their hat, they're right on the bus line, but we're not going to stay there for 10 years. We're going to stay there for a year, maybe 2 at the most, and then we're out. We're moving up to something bigger. So yeah, vacancy is really important, and how do you factor that in? You just have to know the market, you have to do your homework. So if you don't properly budget for these 3 items, you can see how financially you can be in a really bad place.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And there is no rule of thumb for these. You have to really know the market and understand the building and construction and what the life expectancy of certain things is, and what things you can put off and what things you can't. And
now, aside with budgeting, in between just to, well, I guess this factors into budgeting, but do you always put in stuff so that way you can get plumbing checked out? You can get, not just for just these multi-units, but for homes that you do that stuff for too. This all of this applies to that too, correct? I mean, this isn't like a carbon copy where it's like, well, this is just for multi-unit. Realistically, this could be applied to any form of property.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, whether you're buying a shopping mall, which I have no idea what it would take to buy a shopping mall, and what kind of expenses you'll get in buying a shopping mall. But they're no different than buying one single family home. It's just you have to budget differently for elevators, for roofs, for these big 6,000-ton AC units that sit on the roof. I mean, it's completely different. Yeah, knowledge. So that's why I don't buy stuff that I don't know anything about. Gotcha. Like if I was to buy a shopping mall, it would have to be for 1/10 of the price, because that's why all the risk is mitigated. Mm-hmm. So that's not going to happen. So that's why I don't buy shopping malls. Plus, I don't have millions of dollars to buy a shopping.
If you got $1, you could probably buy Century 3 Mall right now.
They just filed for bankruptcy.
Did they?
Yeah, they were going to sheriff's sale, and then they filed for bankruptcy. I heard that.
Everybody get your pennies ready. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Alex. What else? When it comes to really budgeting properly for all these little nuances that you might overlook through the year, what other good tips before we sign off?
I guess another one would be, if this is not budgeting, but properly forecasting what the rents are going to be. So again, if you're looking at things like, hey, the rent, I'm always going to get this high rent amount, that's not the case. I'll give you an example. I have a really nice rental that's coming up vacant now. And some years, this is one of my nicer properties. This is not like what I normally get.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so
my stomach's going to fall out of my body.
This one usually we'll rent for anywhere from $2,000 a month. And that's a lot here in Pittsburgh. Right, so for $2,000 to $2,400. Okay, so right now I think it's rented for $23,000, but I'm starting to get a little bit nervous because that tenant's moving out in 2 weeks. I had somebody who wanted to rent it; they backed out. Just a week after we had it advertised. But my point is, we've had it advertised for 30 days now. I got nobody interested. I'm dropping the price. I might have to drop it to $1,900. I can't afford the $2,000.
Right.
My mortgage payment there with HOA fees and everything is right around, probably my break-even point's $1,800. Yeah, so I'm not making a lot there. It's just one of those properties where I bought it 8 years ago. It'll be paid off in 7.
Oh,
so
nice.
it's a beautiful thing. I love it. The turnover rates there. I'm probably like at 3% vacancy there, maybe 4.
Good.
But every month it's vacant, which is coming up soon in 3 weeks. It's going to be costing me $1,800.
Just as a good refresher, and I know there is no absolute rule of thumb, but on average, vacancy rates, you said, we've gone over this a couple times on podcasts, but what's a good vacancy rate? Typically, what do you aim for? Is that 5%?
0.
Well, obviously, right. But
that's a good one.
0's great. That 1%.
It depends, man. Like that 9-unit building, I'm okay with 10 because if I did my homework right, I would have budgeted for 10%. Okay. Just because it's got some efficiencies in it. It has a couple 1-bedrooms, it has a couple 2-bedrooms. I have one lady that's been there like 25 years, longer than I've owned the building. And I have some people that have been there 4 or 5, and I have some people that just moved in. And actually, one of the units I've just tried out my hand in an Airbnb. So one of the units is an Airbnb, which is going kind of well.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. My daughter's helping me, get people in and out. It's like a hybrid between a hotel and an apartment building. So just one unit, we wanted to try it out and see how it works. So we're going to give it a test drive. But I can afford to do that. I'm testing the waters and getting to know that market.
Nothing wrong with that. And then in a year from now, we'll be doing a podcast about why Airbnbs are nice to invest in.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
All right, Alex. But it seems like the biggest thing that, even in the last thing that I asked you, it always ties back into knowledge. Vacancy rates, absolutely, you never want a vacancy. But like you said, kind of knowing the area, thinking being okay with that 10%, that just comes from the knowledge of knowing what is going to be on there. So knowledge.
Yeah, knowing, not being surprised is always good.
Yeah.
So knowing what you're getting into. And well, like I said, those rents, knowing what the current rents are realistically, and knowing that they can go up and down. They can go up and down. Okay? So have a range, like if I'm buying that building or that house and I said it rents for $2,000 to $2,400, that's my range. And I know that going in. So at $2,000 I'm breaking even, at $2,400 I'm making a decent profit. But I knew that going in. I'm aware of when the market's down, I'm breaking even, maybe losing a little bit of money. And I know when the market's good, I'm making money. But either way, I knew what I was getting into, and I'm not surprised.
All right, so there we go. And surprises are what causes everything to go downward. All right.
Yes, sir.
That's it?
That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, we hope you enjoyed this. A little bit off the wall. We had a little bit comedy aspects in there with some our live studio audience acted up. We had a nice, we'll have to yell at Ian next time. Have him on one of these. But guys, listen, follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. Just search Deacon Hoover on both sites. You'll be able to find us that way. Property updates, property listings, podcasts, events for Alex Deacon's workshops. We have everything on those sites. Find Alex on Bigger Pockets. Find Alex on like I said, meetup.com is where his workshop group is. It's over 500 members now. Make sure you're visiting dhrea.com. My name is Adam. I thank you so much for listening in. For everyone here at DHRE, we thank you, and we'll see you next time.